You can do whatever you want, Karen. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Checkup's National Reconciliation Week event. Before we begin today, I'd like to invite Joseph from Tribal Experiences to welcome us to country. So give him a round of applause.
Where you up here?
Come up here.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Joseph Buman, and I'm a descendant of the Yagara people of this area through my father, Sen and Ruska, who was a well-known spokesperson and songman here in Brisbane. The Yagara tribe is one of the local tribes that occupies the area, stretching from the mouth of the Brisbane River, south to the Logan River, and out to the Great Dividing Range, to the foothills of Warwick and Toowoomba, and as far north as the Caboolture River. I'm here today to give you what is called a welcome to country. So you got the welcome to country speech, you also got the acknowledgement to country speech. And a lot of people do mix them up when you go to different events. So an acknowledgement to country can be done by anyone, so any of you can get up here, do an acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is just paying respects to the traditional owners from that land, paying respects to their elders from the area, and also paying respects to their ancestors from the area too. And a welcome to country is done by a traditional owner, which I'm up here doing today. And a welcome to country isn't something that was recorded down on paper by any of our elders back in the day. It isn't something that was made over 10, 20 years ago. And it isn't something that events organisers or just anyone I've just planned to just organise overnight. It is something that has been around for over 60,000 years, passed down from generation to generation, and is a formal way of welcoming everyone into our tribal areas nowadays. And is also known as one of the oldest living customs in the world known to mankind. Along with the welcome to country speech is also the Chummel ceremony, which is a smoking ceremony. And this is a ceremony that you see a lot of the Aboriginal tribes do around Australia. And this Chummel ceremony, the smoking ceremony, is a cleansing. Cleansing all the bad spirits from the area, bringing in all the good spirits from the area. But it's also a blessing. Blessing everyone into our tribal areas, and blessing everyone with a safe journey through our tribal areas. And there's a time for us as traditional owners to call out to our ancestors to help welcome everyone through that smoke. Along with the welcome to country speech and the Chummel ceremony, the smoking ceremony, was also the passing of the message stick. And the message stick in the Yagara language is one which we called Yalwa Buna. And this Yalwa Buna was a piece of wood used similar to a passport back in the day, and would have different markings or carvings on it to depict the reason why another tribal group wanted to come into an area. For example, there are over 350 different tribal groups throughout Australia. Each of these tribal groups have their own tradition, their own custom, their own law, LORE law, and also their own language, their own dialect. For example, if we were to head down to the Logan River, everyone know where that Logan River is, heading towards the Gold Coast. If we were to cross over that Logan River, it'd be governed by a whole nother tribal group. Again, that tribal group would be the Yugambeh mob. And the Yugambeh mob would have their own tradition, own custom, their own law, and also their own language. And that's where a lot of our tribal groups had a special person in our tribe back in the day. And that one special person was a messenger man. And one of the main messenger men and one of the last messenger men for the Yagara tribe was actually one of my grandfather. His name was Mookin, or his English name was Charlie Morden. Mookin meaning messenger man. So Mookin, he was a man that could speak up to 10 to 15 different languages. So he's a man that could communicate with all the neighbouring tribes throughout southeast Queensland. And he was that main man to meet that person there at the border with the message stick. So a lot of our tribal areas are bordered up by mountains and rivers. So as I said before, if we were to head to that Logan River, we'd actually share that Logan River, that border there with the Yugambeh mob. But for one of us to cross over the river, we'd have to use that passport, that message stick, that Yalwa Buna cross over. And Mookin is the main man to meet that representative there, read that message on the message stick. And it was up to Mookin and the Yagara tribe then to either grant that one person or that tribal group permission to walk through our country, depending on what the reason was, or call on to the rest of the tribe to come through and spear that person there dead on the spot. Very serious back then. That's why I'm glad they invented mobile phones these days. There are three main tribes that occupy this area: the Yagara, Jagara, and Turrbal tribes. Just on behalf of those three tribes and all of my elders, I'd like to welcome everyone here today by saying, Yura Numbali, Yanaragana Ripa Jara, Nanya Birili, Nanya Bayami Jara. Means you're all welcome here today, and may God and all of our ancestors guide us here in peace. Thank you, and welcome to Yagara country. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers,
Deadly. Love hearing the connection. Thank you, Joseph from Tribal Experiences. Well, good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Kieran Chilcott. I'm the CEO of an Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Service, Board of Director of a hospital and health service, and I am lucky enough to serve on the Checkup Queensland board and be able to do reconciliation at all levels across these organisations and this state, which I feel extremely fortunate and privileged to be a part of, given where we've been, where we are today, and the path that we've got to go in the future. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on whose land we meet, pay my respects to the elders past, present, and those of the future, and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. I'd like to give a shout out to the people who are online. I'm not a hybrid presenter, so I'll try and do the best I can at this, but we do have people from across Queensland that are also joining us today. Just a couple of housekeeping. We do have some toilets out the door to the right. In an emergency, follow the screaming man in the corner over there, David Millichap. He'll shoot us out and where we need to go. And there will be some photography happening today. If you don't want any photography, just sit with your hands on your face for the remainder of the morning. National Reconciliation Week, for me, is something deeply personal. Being an Aboriginal man growing up on the Gold Coast with an Aboriginal mum and a non-Indigenous dad, and I wear both the flags really quite proudly, and rooted in culture, but also the great history of what this country is. And I've been able to sort of flip the story and be an Aboriginal dad, and my children have a non-Indigenous mum. And so what's different about my childhood to my children's childhood is the fact that I had to grow up in two worlds and live two very different lives. And I've got the opportunity now to raise my kids in one world. And whilst I'm sad to a degree that we're still talking about reconciliation in 2026, it's a path that we must continue to take and forge forward. The start of this week is the 27th of May, and it's the anniversary of the 1967 referendum, which gave Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people the opportunity to be counted in the census and vote, but also gave powers to the federal government to make laws on behalf of our people. And if you think about that, that's 59 years ago that this anniversary exists. So one generation above me, where we were living in a time where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people couldn't choose who they would like to marry, choose where they want to live, choose to travel, be afforded equal wages, and the opportunity to be able to prosper in this great country. And I say it again, 59 years, because it isn't that long ago, and I'm sure generations to come will look back at this point in time and the opportunity that we have collectively as a nation to be able to raise the standard and continue to raise the standard. And I do acknowledge that we have come so far, because 59 years ago, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to stand here to MC this event in front of all of you with the view of being able to take our people forward. So I acknowledge all of you who are in the room here and those online for what your commitment is to reconciliation. And it is not a destination, it's a journey that we'll continue to ride for many years. But I am optimistic because of what I get to see in all of the roles I get to hold across these amazing organisations and the amazing people that we have as allies. Many people call them allies, so I call them accomplices, because I know that if I needed to sit behind some bars, that I'd have those accomplices sitting right beside me. So the allies and the accomplices, I thank each and every one of you today. Today I acknowledge our special guests that we have in the room. We've got a couple of amazing speakers who I'm fortunate enough to be able to call my friends over time, and have been in multiple different roles with these people, and it's an opportunity for us to really dig a little bit deep and understand what reconciliation means to them, and also the theme of being all in. And in saying that, on all of your chairs there was a bit of an activity for you to be able to reflect during today's sessions around what all in means to you personally, or means to you within a professional sense or from an organisational sense. So that's an opportunity for you to be able to reflect today, as we have speakers and panel members contributing what their thoughts are. So please actively be involved in that. We will ask for you to share some of your responses towards the end of this session. And I just also want to acknowledge Tony, Checkup's CEO, and the work that Checkup does here in terms of reconciliation and making a difference in improving health outcomes and ensuring that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander have a voice in the services and programs that are delivered by this organisation, because reconciliation and health equity can't be done to our people. It must be done with our people and walking alongside them. And what I see from the team here at Checkup under Anne-Marie Liddy's leadership and now Tony's leadership has always been that, and even a throwback to Karen. And Karen did some of the most amazing foundational work, which actually made that shift whereby health equity was not done to my people in this state, it was done with us. And when the voice is part of the journey, that's when real health equitable outcomes are achieved. Today I acknowledge Helena Wright, who is a Reconciliation Queensland board member, also a really good friend of mine, and I've had the fortunate experience to be able to work with Helena for, we'll give it away, 20 years or 20 years. I was 12 at the time. But Helena's a board director of Reconciliation Queensland and also the deputy CEO of the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Child Protection Peak. An experienced leader in human services, child protection and family services, and has been a keen advocate both inside government and outside of government in terms of making a difference for our children. A proud First Nations woman with deep professional expertise, she brings a strong focus on improving outcomes for all communities through advocacy, governance and system reform. So without further ado, I'll invite Helena to come up and provide an address this morning. So please give her a round of applause.
Just get my notes sorted, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this very special event. And it's lovely to be here on behalf of Reconciliation Queensland. So I thank Checkup for the very generous invite for us to come and present to you. Can I just thank Joseph for his welcome to country, and also I'd like to acknowledge country as well and pay my respects to the people of the Turrbal and Jagera nations here where we're gathered, and thank them for their ongoing custodianship of this very beautiful place. We're very privileged to do the important work that we all do on, and I'll have to remember to look at the camera as well. And I acknowledge our elders, past and present, who have fought for us, who have demonstrated resilience, and who were able to celebrate achievements, which means that I am here with the opportunities that I have. And as Kieran mentioned this morning, the opportunities that we all have that we might not have had 59 years ago. And I think about that because I'm 57, so I must have been 30 when you were 12, so it's fine. It's all fine. But I'm a Kabi woman. I'm from the Sunshine Coast. One of my great grandmothers is a stolen generation woman. She was born in Cloncurry, swept up under the legislation at that time in what they used to call sweeps, and taken to Normanton. And then she was brought down here to Brisbane when there was a shortage of domestics. And she met my great-grandfather, who's an Aboriginal South Sea Islander man from Nambour. And I always like to say that all roads lead to Nambour. There's always a Nambour connection. But I also like to do the connection to this place and to this, important content matter that you all work with every day. And in terms of this place, my sister works in that building across the road. So she works for the Department of Child Safety and Investment and Commissioning in the First Nations space. A really important role when you think about the millions of dollars that go out to organisations like yours to improve the well-being of children and families, and to work to reduce the overrepresentation, disproportionate representation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in the child protection system. In terms of health, we're a big health family. When I was small, my dad used to work wherever he could get work, main roads, council, feed truck, anywhere. And Mum used to work at the hospital as the cook and the domestic at our local hospital. Then Dad got a job at the Cherbourg Hospital as a wardsman. And I'm pretty sure at that time we probably could have ended up with a whole heap more children to look after for little bits of time, because that's all I can remember seeing at home, all these photos of him holding all the babies in the Cherbourg Hospital. But from there, he did his enroll nurse training. Then he went to Toowoomba and did his registered nurse training. He has a master's in rural and remote health and lectures before he retired out at ACU in the nursing school. So that's pretty good for an Aboriginal man who went to year 8 at Nambour High School. One of my sisters, and I'm the oldest of 6, so I'm the bossy one. But my next sister down, Anna, she's a doctor. She was the first Aboriginal person admitted, I think that's how they say it, admitted to the Australasian School of Pathologists. So she's a pathologist, obviously. And when she was doing her doctor training and working in the morgue and deciding on pathology, we thought that's probably the best part of the best type of doctor she could be, given her bedside manner. Anyway, and she has 4 children, so she used to say, and not to be disrespectful, but she used to say, well, my patients will wait for me till the morning. Yeah. But I just wanted to talk a bit about Reconciliation Week, talk about the importance of health and reconciliation and how far we've come in that space, and then talk a bit about what Reconciliation Queensland is doing and how that connects to the theme for this week, All In. So National Reconciliation Week provides an opportunity for Australians to reflect on our shared history and our shared future, and encourages us to see how far we've come, but more importantly, to see how far we still have to go. And for me, reconciliation has never been about symbolism or commemoration. For me, it's always been about what are the practical actions that I can do every day that will make a difference and will create a legacy, a positive legacy. And I was thinking back about when my interest, and that's not really the right word, in reconciliation started. But I remember, and Dad reminded me, that I won a reconciliation award when I was in year 8 at high school at Morgan State High. Yeah, I remember thinking back then, it's just common sense, and it just makes sense that we all think about how we can bring everyone along together. So, and as I said, it's about the choices we make as individuals, organisations and communities, and it's about whether we're prepared to confront some difficult truths, listen with humility and work together to create a more equitable future. And these questions are relevant in every sector that we work in, but nowhere more important than in health. And that's because health is deeply personal. It touches every family, every community, and every stage of life. And it's one of the clearest reflections of whether people feel valued, included, and supported within our society. And when we talk about reconciliation in health, we are not discussing an abstract concept. We're talking about people's lives and their lived experiences. Most people in this room would be familiar with the statistics. We know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians continue to experience poorer health outcomes across many measures. We know there's significant disparities in chronic diseases, mental health, life expectancy, and access to services. But these statistics only tell us part of the story. So what they can't capture is the experiences of a family travelling hundreds of kilometres to access specialist care. They can't capture the experience of a young person who doesn't feel safe walking into a building or engaging with a service. And they can't capture the burden carried by communities who've experienced generations and generations of policies and systems that have been done to them rather than with them. Okay, now my phone is saying Microsoft Word is closed. Let me quickly reopen one. Please hold. My apologies, people. But equally, the statistics can't capture fully the strength that exists within Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. They don't tell the story of elders who fought for us and fought for our health services and other services, our own services, and who continue to support and guide our younger ones. The statistics do not reflect the resilience of communities who've been able to maintain culture, language, identity and connection despite extraordinary challenges, and nor do they capture the leadership that's shown by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations across Queensland every day. And if we're serious about reconciliation, we need to hold and defend both these realities at the same time. We need to acknowledge the inequities that persist while recognising the strengths that already exist. One of the most important lessons that I've learned throughout my career, and before joining QPHCN about 2 years ago, I was in the government for 30 years, coming from the community sector to government. And one of the most important lessons I've learned, other than never piss off the admin staff, sorry for swearing to it, never piss off the admin staff, is that the only time that change happens and sustainable change happens is when communities are empowered to lead. So across Queensland, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations are delivering outcomes because they understand the communities that they serve, they understand local priorities, they understand cultural protocols and obligations, and they understand community dynamics and family structures. But more importantly, they understand that health doesn't exist in isolation. Health is influenced, as we all know, by housing, education, employment, our economic opportunity, our cultural connection, and our social well-being, and these factors are all deeply interconnected. And this is why community-led approaches are so important. When communities are involved in designing solutions, programs are more effective. When communities have ownership, outcomes are more sustainable. And when communities are trusted as partners rather than a passive recipient, relationships become stronger. And the principle of self-determination is not a policy position, it is a practical pathway to better outcomes. And why do these relationships matter? One of the themes that always comes through in every reconciliation week is about the importance of relationships. And I've always said that it's not paper, it's not process, it's not policy that gets things done, it's relationships, and relationships between people who are willing to take a step on the same journey as you. And in my experience, meaningful change only happens at the speed of trust and at the community's pace. Trust can't be legislated, it can't be purchased, and it certainly can't be rushed. Trust is built through consistency. It's built when people listen before they speak, when organisations and people honour their commitments, and when leaders continue to engage, even when the conversations and the path ahead becomes difficult. Many of us, all of us, work in environments where there's pressure to move quickly. We have to deliver projects, we have to deliver outcomes, we have time frames, we have targets, and those things are important. But reconciliation requires us to remember that some of the most important outcomes can't be measured in a quarterly report, and that's something that you all know as well. It's about the quality of a relationship, and that matters. It's about whether people feel heard, trusted, and included. It's about the level of trust. And when those foundations are strong, progress can become possible. And when they're absent, even the best designed initiative will struggle to succeed. At Reconciliation Queensland, our strategic plan is built around 3 priorities. We're really proud of our strategic plan. We worked on it for a good 6 months before it was announced at our gala dinner last year. And the first is truth-telling. We have to continue to tell the truth about our history and our shared history. The second is about advocacy, and the third is about strengthening communities. And these priorities are mutually reinforcing and interconnected. Truth-telling is important because when everybody understands the shared history, we can build a better future. It requires us to acknowledge the experiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples honestly and respectfully. And it asks us to understand how the historical decisions continue to shape present day outcomes. And as a long-term public servant, that was who had worked on projects like stolen wages, not projects, really important initiatives like stolen wages. What is the decision I'm making today, and what is the legacy of that for my people, my descendants? One thing I didn't say at the beginning is I'm a grandma of two, finally. Finally. It's really hard when your dreams are wrapped up in somebody else, you know. Advocacy is really important because awareness alone doesn't create change. Progress requires people and organisations who are willing to use their influence to challenge barriers, improve systems and support better outcomes. And strengthening communities is important because lasting change is rarely imposed from the top down. It grows. It grows from local leadership and it grows from local action. And when these three elements come together, reconciliation is more than an aspiration, it's tangible and practical. So the role of truth-telling in health. Truth-telling can sometimes be misunderstood. I think people think it's about apportioning blame, and it's not about that. It's not about creating division. What it is, it's about building understanding. And in the health sector, truth-telling means acknowledging that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have not always experienced health systems as a place of safety, trust and respect. It means that experiences of racism continue to affect health outcomes. And it means listening to people when they tell us about their experience and then being prepared to learn from what they share with us. The reality is that understanding often begins with listening, and listening requires humility. It requires us to accept that we may not have all the answers, and that those closest to an issue are the ones who are best placed to identify the solutions. One of the most important concepts in health, in contemporary healthcare, is cultural safety. Yet it's sometimes treated as belonging to a particular part of an organisation, a particular team in a place, or a particular department. But in reality, it belongs to all of us. Belongs to the leaders who set the organisational culture, belongs to managers who support their teams, it belongs to clinicians, reception staff, administrators and board members. And cultural safety is not a checklist, either a tick and flick exercise. It's about an experience. It's reflected in whether people feel respected as soon as they walk through the door, and whether they feel comfortable to ask questions, whether they feel that their identity is central to the way we're thinking and talking with them, and whether they feel safe enough to come back. And for many people, these small interactions have a profound impact on their willingness to engage with services. Creating culturally safe environments is not additional work, it's quality, it's delivering quality care. And advocacy is another role where we all have a part to play. It's not limited to peak bodies like where I work, it's not limited to community organisations, and it's definitely not limited to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's not reserved for politicians or public figures either. For some people, advocacy may involve speaking public about issues that affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, but for others, it may involve ensuring that perspectives are included in decision-making processes. It may involve supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leadership, challenging assumptions, asking difficult questions about whether this system is actually working for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And importantly, it shouldn't be about speaking on behalf of anyone, speaking on behalf of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or communities. It should be about listening first, understanding the issues, and using whatever influence we can bring as people to supporting community-led solutions. One of the strongest messages in Reconciliation Queensland's work is that reconciliation doesn't happen in conference centres, boardrooms, and it doesn't happen during weeks like this week. It happens in communities, it happens in schools, workplace, sporting clubs, neighbourhoods. And it happens through conversation where people who may have different experiences and perspectives are willing to learn from each other. Across Queensland, you will know there's local reconciliation action groups, elders, volunteers, teachers, health workers and community leaders who've been doing this work for decades upon decades. Many of them do it quietly, without recognition, without resourcing, simply because they believe that relationships matter and a better future is possible for everyone. And I think there's an important message in that effective reconciliation work isn't necessarily the most visible. It's the work that continues on long after the headlines and long after the events. It's the organisation that remains committed to the work when the work becomes challenging. It's the leader who continues listening when the conversations become uncomfortable. And it's the community that keeps showing up year after year because they understand that trust takes time to build. But despite the challenges that remain, I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic because I see extraordinary leadership emerging across our communities, and it always has been there. I see organisations increasingly recognising the value of genuine partnerships, and I see young people who are curious, engaged and committed to a more inclusive Australia. I see communities, including my community, that continue to demonstrate remarkable resilience, generosity and hope for the future. And none of that means that the work is finished. There is still much more to do, but it does mean that we have strong foundations on which to build. So as we mark National Reconciliation Week, I believe there's a simple question for all of us to consider. What role are we prepared to play? Not role should government play, not role should another organisation play, but what role are each of us willing to play every day? Whether we work in healthcare, community services, government, education, business, we all have the ability to contribute. And perhaps that begins with listening more deeply, building stronger relationships, creating opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voices to be heard in places where the decisions are made. And perhaps it means having the courage to advocate for change when it's needed. Whatever form it takes, reconciliation advances when ordinary people make deliberate choices to contribute to it consistently and time again. At Reconciliation Queensland, we often talk about reconciliation as something that lives in relationships. Relationships built on honesty, strengthened through trust, sustained by mutual respect and shared purpose. And these are the relationships that are the foundation of a reconciled Australia. But they're also the foundation of better health outcomes, stronger communities, and a more equitable future. So can I thank you all for the work that you do, and thank you for your commitment to reconciliation, and thank you for being part of the ongoing journey towards building a healthier, fairer, and more inclusive Australia for all. Thank you.
Thank you to join us. I'm going to take your hands. I'll be here to join us.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks. Thanks, Helena. And then the words that you shared with us around the trust and honesty and the open communication, the deep listening, they all resonate. And the message around courageous actions and courageous leadership. And I think that's it doesn't come from people who are CEOs. I think courageous leadership comes in many forms and through each and every one of us who are in this room and outside of this room that do things. I think also, and thank you for sharing some of your personal journey with us, Helena. Hope I don't meet your sister soon, but the message, I think, is not about lowering expectations for our people. I think it's more so about raising the standard of the nation. And I'm very biased in terms of my Queensland allegiance, but I'm also particularly proud of the people that I get to work with across this state and what I get to see across both sectors, because there is that genuine movement and feel within this state, which I don't think some of my counterparts have the opportunity to experience. So thank you very much. We'll give her one more round of applause. This is my favourite time of the year, where I get to be like a hybrid version of Jerry Springer, Dr. Phil, and get to chair a panel of some really amazing people from our sector, and with the opportunity to talk about the theme All In for Reconciliation Week, and it calls for all Australians to wholeheartedly commit to reconciliation every single day, as Helena said. And it's not about making it a spectator sport and something that we can show from it. A lot of the times the work that we do in reconciliation space you can't see, but we certainly can feel. I have the opportunity to introduce my panel members today and some very good friends in this lineup. I've even got a bio for me here, but I'm not going to read that. And you know, as they make their way down, they'll do a bit of a supermodel walk and a bit of a twirl while I'm reading their bio. So no pressure, people online, you're in for a show. And here they come. Our first panel member today, we have Kale Robertson. Karen Hale Robertson, the Chief Executive Officer of Open Minds, with more than 15 years experience in executive leadership across mental health, disability and community services, and an ambassador for My People, who has worked really hard to improve the outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. She is a highly regarded leader known for her strategic and operational expertise, as well as her strong personal commitment to improving mental health outcomes. And for the first dance of the day, welcome Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dance that you're not going to want to miss. Tony D'Ambrosis is the Chief Executive Officer of Checkup, bringing extensive experience across government and primary healthcare sectors, a qualified physiotherapist, a former executive leader in the health services and commissioning and rehabilitation. He has a strong record of driving system improvement and community health outcomes, and he also can shoot a hoop. Welcome, Tony. Go on, Tony. Go on, just give us a little. And our last speaker, my dear friend Mina Waller, grew up in central Queensland and has cultural connections to the Walmun and Yarru people in northwest Kimberley. Mina is the Chief Operating Officer at Cancer Council Queensland, with a career spanning health, community development and policy leadership. She is recognised for her commitment to social justice and collaborative, people-centred approaches, particularly in advancing health equity for our people. Thank you, Mina. And I'll also welcome back Helen, all right. So do say hybrid Dr. Phil, hybrid Jerry Springer. Feel free to throw a chair. Happy for any entertainment that you guys can bring today. But thank you so much for joining. It's always a pleasure to be able to do a panel with friends, amongst friends. But the first question I think I wanted to unpack with you all, and I'll ask you all to speak to this, is the theme All In for Reconciliation, and the ability to, I guess, make subtle changes whilst being all in. And what does that look like or feel like for each of you? I'll throw to Karen.
I think Helen touched on it really nicely. I think truth-telling, being willing to be an active listener in truth-telling and of truth-telling, and doing everything that we can every day, not just for a week or even 2 weeks a year, to actively engage in conversations with our First Nations peoples and communities, policy and decision makers, but also with non-First Nations peoples as well. And being willing to, I guess, put yourself out there a little bit in helping to correct some of people's misunderstandings, inaccuracies. A lot of the time they're not deliberate, they just haven't taken the time to learn. And one of the reasons we're rolling out a particular program across the group that I work in, which hopefully you'll hear a little bit about shortly, is because there is so much truth-telling embedded, particularly around the histories of our First Nations peoples. And for me, I feel that that's a really important foundation for people to start from, that willingness to learn and to keep that learning going. And it's about us as, I think about, you know, my journey, and yes, I'm a CEO of Open Minds, I'm a sector, dare I say, veteran, possibly now. I'm also a mum to 5 kids and stepkids, and I'm a friend and a community member. And so it's about wearing all of those hats, being willing to have those conversations and to do that listening and learning.
So, Karen, you've always been for as long as I've known you, an ally. Like, where did your allyship come from?
My first boyfriend.
Okay.
So I grew up in a place called Tamworth. Many of you will know it, just outside of Tamworth, actually. And my first boyfriend, I still remember his name, actually. He was lovely, and he was an Aboriginal boy, and I got to know his family and his community. And my brother also had a lot of Aboriginal mates. And so I just, at my school, I had a lot of Aboriginal friends as well, and it just really got me interested, I guess. And I then stepped into Aboriginal health, and my passion and my energy and my commitment to the space has just grown from there.
Thanks.
But yeah, started at a relatively young age.
Thank you. Tony, all in.
I'm going to speak personally. For me, it's a really good theme, because it actually challenged my thinking to go, what am I doing and what am I doing to make a difference and change? And I guess so it's challenging myself to think, what can I do? And I think I kind of go, yeah, I'm on board, I get it, but it's about the actions. And I guess all in for me is, what can I do in my sphere of influence? And I guess I was privileged to be born white. I've experienced it. I don't fully understand it, but what I do know is many of my friends have no idea what advantages they get. And I think being able to educate and I guess help them on their own journey to understand that to me is all in. So it's challenged me to go that next step, to actually challenge others and think about it. So that's what it means for me.
Thanks. Mina.
Well, where do I start? I think like the word I want to use, well, 2 words, is universal proportionalism. And I think that in the space that I've been in for the last 14 months, the cancer space is quite a conservative space, and I would say that health equity has the furthest to go in this space. So I've been constantly having these conversations about, no one misses out. When reconciliation is done well, actually everyone benefits. And so when we think about, all of the work that we need to do to make sure that First Nations people, and looking at the priority groups and the National Cancer Plan, we've got First Nations people as a strategic priority group, but then we've got people from regional remote communities, we've got people with a disability, we've got queer folk, we've got people living below the poverty line, and then all the intersections that happen within those groups. And there's 10 priority groups, I won't call them all out. But when you actually think about that, if we design systems, design services, design our communities in a way that that benefits the most marginalised and disadvantaged historically, then no one misses out. Everyone benefits from that. So for me, all in is acknowledging that everyone has a benefit, everyone has a stake, everyone has, a voice, everyone has something to give to this space. And when we do it well, then, it's a really exciting community, place, world to live in.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Thank you, Mina. Ella, did you have anything to add in terms of the theme?
I guess from my perspective, I when it came out, I agree it was really thought-provoking, because you think, what does that mean? So for me, it's about me and what I'm going to do, but also I thought about it in the context of all in. Am I facilitating, as an example, spaces where people can be all in? Young people, are we hearing the voices of young people? Are we hearing the voices of our elderly? Are we hearing the voices of people who are experiencing? And are we making space for those? So from experiencing the systems that, that we all experience, and are we making space for those in our day-to-day work? So that's something that I've thought about in the context of this.
Thank you. Tony, Checkup's doing some amazing work right across Queensland with some of their most vulnerable communities, and a large proportion of my people are accessing specialist medical services that they would not have otherwise access to. What is your organisation specifically doing to progress reconciliation?
It's a good question, Kieran. So bearing in mind, been here 10 weeks, so still learning a little bit.
And I'm on the board, so I'm judging him.
I'm very conscious of that too. Got a meeting coming up. What are we doing? So look, from a practical sense, there's a reconciliation action plan in place. This is our second stretch. I've been talking with the architects of that plan, and I guess one of the things internally for us, I think, is taking a baseline of just where the organisation is at to be able to compare back against, and then implementing changes to see, is it working? So a little bit of my health background coming out in the outcomes. But I think one of the things that really worked for me is not so much, so the cultural immersion I get, but actually that truth telling and hearing the histories and what's happened to give meaning to just the barriers that have been created and put up and what that means for people. That to me is what I want to advance within Checkup. Outside of Checkup, the work we're still doing is community has a voice in how it's spent, where it goes, and what it's doing, and continuing to progress that and work with that. I like to think that one of my better skills is active listening and actually hearing and then understanding what needs to be put in place. So I hope to apply that myself for Checkup and to then put that through the organisation as to this is the way we want to go. But yeah, good. And that's from the heart. We didn't talk to each other before this, so that's definitely my feel.
Karen, Open Minds.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a little snapshot on Open Minds and maybe
Yep.
talk to
What we're doing in the
What's
reconciliation
happening?
space. Yep. So Open Minds has been around for 114 years. We're a relatively old organisation now, steeped in history. About, I think, 5 years ago, Open Minds was acquired by a group called the Vertiview Group. And so what that means is we are one organisational member of a much bigger group. So there's around 2,500 employees throughout the Vertiview Group. Open Minds makes up only around 470 or 80 of those. So we're all human services organisations and we all contribute to a back of house suite of functions. So group shared services model. Open Minds has a very clear purpose, which is to deliver integrated place-based mental health services. And we have been active in the NDIS space, but we're starting to step out of that, and that will go to one of our counterparts, Multicap, moving forward, so that we can be really focused on integrated mental health. So if you think about things like headspaces and Medicare mental health centres, so free, accessible care available in communities. So when I came into the group now just over 4 years ago, because there's now 5 discrete organisations. They were all at various stages of reconciliation, and it was really only Open Minds who had had a reconciliation plan before. They'd had an Innovate wrap, but it was somewhat dormant. The rest of the entities hadn't had one. So I had to really think, how do I approach this as the executive lead for reconciliation, as well as being the CEO for a different entity then. So I decided we had to start from scratch again. So because we actually span 3 different states, 4 different entities, the workforce are all really different. So you've got everything from frontline disability support workers with what I would say limited time in Australia, sometimes limited exposure, in particular to our history and First Nations peoples. And then you move into, very highly qualified corporate staff and clinicians like Open Minds has. So there was a real, variety of people at different and various stages. So we formed the working group, Unlimited Places for First Nations Employees, chaired by a First Nations employee. So the same disability support worker, a very proud First Nations woman from New South Wales, has been chairing the group the whole time. We started with the basics, and that was to create our vision through an artwork. Which we worked on with the lovely and late Leah Cummins. And that was to get some, I guess, ownership of the space, because what we were able to do then was to put the artwork across all of our services and all of our offices. And so that helped to start the conversation and to form a bit of an identity, and then we moved to the shirts. And so that's really helped to engage people. We've been on our Reflect Wrap now for 3 years. It's longer than you would expect, but it's because we have quite a lot of turnover, particularly at the front line. And we've got such a big span to embed across. I didn't want to forget anything, so I just wrote down a few things. As I mentioned, the training has been really important. It's actually a three-part training course. It was previously called Your Mob, developed in Central Queensland. I think now they've moved to the name Malu, and it actually is an investment of about 10 hours. And so all leaders across the Vertiview group and all corporate services staff need to have completed that, as well as salaried clinicians and providers. What's been more challenging is the frontline workforce who, to be quite frank, particularly under the NDIS, the funding isn't there to support them to take that many hours outside, away from direct service delivery. So the compromise there was through our cultural capability officer, who's also on the RAP working group, to do a piece to camera, which is a bit of an orientation to cultural awareness. And that's shown to all employees at induction. And then that tells them where they can find further information, and there's an ongoing link back to the RAP working group. We have put in place a self-identification process for people who do wish to identify as First Nations workforce. That for us is really important because we've got ourselves a target of 3 to 4%, not even be 4%, First Nations employees across the group, in line with and above if we can, but just at least stepping into where we should be in terms of population share. And also so that leaders understand if and where we have First Nations employees. And I guess being able to engage outside of just that working group. So when we're doing things like policy and procedure reviews, inviting our First Nations employees from across the group to actually look at those with us and to seek that feedback from them and to make adjustments and amendments as they think would be required. We do have a very informal mob community group, and it's led by a First Nations employee. They connect, so it's for First Nation staff only. They connect informally, as I said, once a month. I don't know what they talk about. I don't have to know. And if there's any need for that to come back to the reconciliation group, we've got that common link through the very informal chair, because she's obviously mob and on the reconciliation action plan working group. We stay accountable by reporting back to the board of directors and the group chief executive, and that happens through my role. We've got formal linkages with vet providers, universities, schools, and also recruitment agencies to ensure that we're attracting First Nations employees into the group and giving them a career pathway. And of course, something that I'm extremely proud of is the work that Open Mind specifically does. We're a fairly long-term provider of Medicare mental health centres and headspaces. The Commonwealth Government is really onto this space. It is a requirement that we co-design all of our services with all of community to ensure that they are culturally welcoming and safe services once they're opened. And so Kieran would know that on the Gold Coast, we're setting up a new Medicare mental health centre, and we've spent a year engaging local community, including some really great engagement with Cowan to ensure that when those doors open in Pimpama around the 1st of July, that the community knows about us, that they feel safe accessing services from us, that they see themselves reflected, they see their feedback and input reflected in that service that we're opening. And then of course we involve them in the ongoing feedback process, so in our governance structures, constantly saying, how are we doing okay, and then being willing to I guess take that feedback on board and make changes.
Brilliant, thank you. Mina, with
just looking at I've started
Cancer
writing
Council
all the
Queensland.
things that I think it's good, a good place to start is why I joined Cancer Council Queensland, and on the face value of the brand and identity, it's not necessarily a place that I would have wanted to work, which is why I felt like I had to work there. And so for me, bringing a really strong health equity lens has been core as to why I'm in that position and why I wanted to come back into health. But there's so many things, and we don't have a reconciliation action plan but that doesn't mean that we're not doing the work, and I think that that's important. Although RAPs keep you accountable, sometimes they can be a nice thing to do, and organisations don't then go and implement that. So for us, it's been a long process in the last 12 months of actually just getting out and hearing from past employees, past clients around like what their experience has been. A lot of people don't know we deliver a lot of services, so accommodation. We have a psych team. We have that works across the state. We have transport to and from hospital for people travelling. We have financial counsellors. We have 2 helplines. So we do a lot in the community that people don't know about. And for me, understanding how we can actually engage more and be a culturally safe place for First Nations people to come, not just as a client, but to work. So that's been a process in itself. We're developing a new impact strategy, and health equity is at the core, the foundation of the strategy. So resourcing and prioritising health equity as its own big piece of work, but actually that it's embedded across every part of the organisation. So the finance team know what their role is in health equity because their work supports the work that, all of that impact work that we do. So that's really important. Building an approach to lived experience and understanding that it's that a lot of people come with lived experience, particularly in cancer. 1 in 2 people have cancer by the time they're 85. But what does lived experience actually mean? And we want to understand people's lived experience of the barriers that exist in the system, the barriers that exist in the work that we do and that we're not doing well enough. And so that's really important. Partnering with community control organisations, knowing that the community controlled sector often have a lot of work to do and limited resources, and I think that allyship in that space is really important, and acknowledging that doing things in partnership and kind of taking on part of that is really crucial. And then in our advocacy work, so how do we ensure that barriers that exist are front and centre across all priority groups, but acknowledging that cancer disproportionately impacts Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people through screening, through treatment, through agency and experience of the health system. So we have a really big role to play there, and understanding that we can play a bit of a convening role, and it's exciting, but we've got a long way to go. And for me, the other big part is just acknowledging that if you're an Aboriginal person who has cancer or has a family member who has cancer, then how do you know who to call, and how do you know that who you call is going to be someone that's going to pick up and understand your story and understand that culture is a protective factor, and for us getting that right at the practice level and understanding that the therapeutic approach is really important too in the context of health and health responses. So yeah.
Thank you, and thank you. I think it's for me to have another First Nations person in a role such as yours within a big mainstream organisation, the balance between being able to operate business as usual, but also carry the cultural load. I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I'm not in an identified role. Like, I'm doing my own job, and then you take on the responsibility as an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, particularly when you've got all of the other things that you do in a role, and then you have that extra opportunity and responsibility to get it right. So definitely building the right people in the organisation and bringing those right Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander strong people to know that I'm not in it alone, and that's important.
Awesome. Helen, can I ask you with a different hat on, with your Deputy CEO of the Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Child Protection Peak and Youth Justice Peak, but being an Aboriginal organisation with an Aboriginal board, what does reconciliation look like within your organisation?
For us, it's the work we do every day. So, and I think it goes, Mina, to your point earlier around if we can get things right for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, then we can get it right for all children. So that's, I guess that's how we work. That's our aim. In terms of practical reconciliation and practical action, we spend time working with our non-First Nations sister and brother organisations who are working with First Nations children and families. And I can give probably two examples of some of the work we do. One, we run a waterways project, which essentially is 2-day training for non-First Nations organisations. The first day is about hidden histories, so the truth-telling component. And then the second day is for how to work in a trauma-informed way. So, and we've run that throughout the state. We get a lot of requests for that training for people from everywhere, from government and non-Indigenous organisations. Probably the other one I'll just mention is last week we won one of the Premier's Awards for reconciliation for one of our initiatives, and it's a cultural parenting framework and tools. And again, it's aimed at supporting non-First Nations practitioners in non-Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander orgs, our mainstream orgs, just to provide information about what cultural parenting looks like and how to work with First Nations families. So we have a focus on things like culture as a protective factor, the important roles of brothers and sisters in bringing up children in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families. We talk about risk and what it looks like from our perspective and what it might look like from other perspectives. And there's a whole range of tools. One of the things that, interestingly, that came up when we were developing it was, well, we want to work in this way, but our organisation's policies don't support that. So we included a part in the framework about how to mediate and work through those things, which was really important for practitioners and our frontline service delivery people. And I was going to say something else there too. And we piloted with 7 different organisations, and we got some feedback after we piloted it. We developed it up through yarning circles, knowledge circles, through cultural ways of doing business. But one lot of the feedback that came back was, well, this has changed our intake forms now. So understanding what cultural parenting looks like means we've changed the way we do intakes. So that's really practical reconciliation. Yeah.
I'm going to, I'll open it up. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll open it up to the audience if anybody's got any questions. And anybody online, if you've got any questions, please put it in the chat, and Mr. DJ will give me a wave over there to let me know. Look, it's been really insightful, and I think it's great to sort of hear the different parts of everybody's journey and the different pieces that are moving within the organisation. I think it's really important to recognise that as a sector, whilst we're all on various levels of this journey, but as the theme is that we're all in it together. I'd just be really keen to, I don't know, be a little bit controversial, and I'm not going to ask this question of anybody, but is there anything that you've seen that you think that isn't working, or I wish they just stopped doing that? Is there anything that actually has been through your career, and I don't expect you to name or point fingers, but have there been any of those pressure points around what happens in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander service sphere? And maybe even in your personal life, that you think, here's an opportunity for me to say, please stop. Hard question.
My one is when you go into a community-based organisation, could be a healthcare provider, and they've got paintings on the wall and maybe some brochures here and there, but their behaviours don't reflect any level of cultural awareness, let alone competence or capability. So that tokenistic kind of setting that I think sometimes organisations feel obliged to establish. That doesn't go very deep at all. It's not reflected in their staffing mix, their behaviours, their treatment, their intake process, their assessment process, their practice. So that is something that I think please stop.
Yeah.
Is don't bother
Totally agree.
giving anyone a false sense of hope
Yeah.
if your behaviours are going to actually be the complete opposite of what needs to happen to make that person feel understood and safe and like they're going to be appropriately cared for.
Good. Thank you.
I'll jump in on that and say the only person that can tell you if their experience was a culturally safe one is the person that experienced it. And so, cultural humility is a mindset, not a badge that you wear. Once you put it on you and said, this is me, then
I've got my qualification.
Yeah, I've got my qualifications. So I think that that's really important. And a few years ago when I was designing our cultural framework for another organisation, I was writing kind of what are the principles that are really important, and it's always just about being a good human.
Yeah.
And about being people-centered. You don't need to know someone's culture. You just need to know that that they are their own person and that you need to walk that journey with them, and that doesn't matter who you are. And I think that that's the other thing is you don't have to be an expert in anything. You just have to be a good person and think about what does being a good person mean and how would I like to be treated. And I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
So when we get away from, cultural capability, I've got my printout or I've done this, and they're all really important, and I don't think that you should stop doing those. But I think that when they stop becoming a means to an end and start becoming a part of just who you are to practice being a good human, then I think that's the key.
Beautifully said. I want a shirt that says practice being a good human.
Yeah.
Look, I'm happy to open it up to the floor. Do we have any questions?
I was just going to say on that too, just building on that. I think it's around that concept, the training around it, and it's got to be something that's embedded across the organisation and revisited.
Yeah.
And I think the danger is it's ticked off at induction and then popped away, and they're out. And the training's got much better at saying it's a journey and everything, and that you need to understand it's different, but it needs to be embedded in the procedures and the policies to say this needs to be revisited all the time. It's not
talked about at the start, maybe.
Exactly. And I think that's it. So it's not that anything needs to change, it needs to evolve. Evolve, improve is how I would put it.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. All right. The auction starts now. Do we have any hands going once? Mr. DJ, anybody online got any questions? No? Jess.
Hi. Jess Ostenbrook, Exec Director with Children's Health Queensland. Hi. And I'm really proud to be joined here by the Children's Health Queensland executive team. We're really aware that more than half of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Queensland are under the age of 25. And I'm just interested in your thoughts on what all in means for children and young people and for our future, and what organisations like ours can do to create that part.
Working in a child and family organisation, the Child Protection Peak and the Youth Justice Peak. So QPHCN is the Youth Justice Peak for all children, and that's been a big change for us. So all Queensland's children. And I think as a 57-year-old, it's not for me to say, but I think I understand that children and young people work very differently than I did at that age. And I think it's important for them to have their voice in a way that they feel meets their needs. And we have a Solid Voices Youth Council, which informs all of our work at QPHCN. And just an example for our Commission of Inquiry, the Child Protection Commission of Inquiry, which finished, thankfully, last week or the week before, the Solid Voices Youth Council, rather than do a written submission, they did a video submission, and it's a small thing and a small example of what you're saying. But I think really it's for them to let us know how to best be involved with the work and how best their voices will be heard. Yeah.
I think the universal proportionalism approach, goes back to if we create a community, if we create a policy, if we create, a hospital or a health service with children in mind, and hearing from children and understanding what their needs are and designing for that, then we don't have to think about them as a side note. We think about them in the collective, and I think Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, culture, and a lot of other First Nations cultures in the world really do that well. Children are part of, and you see, the little kids up in East Arnhem dancing up, up with everyone else and the world's like, oh my goodness, look at this little deadly, dancer. And it's like, well, actually, that's just a part of the way that we do things. Kids are involved in what we do, and they're not seen as that, a part of on the side. And I think that, that's like a really simple answer, and it doesn't get to the core of lots of other things. But I think if we start there, then the world will be a better place and a lot more fun.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Thanks, Jess. Anything online? Well, look, without further ado, I think our panel have been through enough today. It's a rough crowd having to look at all of them. But look, I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to reconciliation, the work that you do, not only in your professional life, but what you carry personally. I know all of you very close, and I'm glad this lot got to the opportunity to get a sneak peek into who you are and what you do, and the difference that you continue to make every day for my people. So thank you very much. You may dance back to your chairs. Tony might do a little shot for us. I genuinely appreciate it, and I think probably, Jess, I want to answer your question, but I wasn't a panel member, so I had to get up here to answer it. I think for me, I've got so much optimism about young people and children that I see today. We, on the Gold Coast, as the community-controlled organisation, have the most fortunate experience to operate an Aboriginal cultural centre down on Burleigh Headland, and we opened that 13 years ago with no funding attached to it. We had approached the state government, got a peppercorn lease and an old information centre there with the caveat to make it look pretty from the outside, and we made it look pretty from the outside but put heart on the inside. And why I say I've got so much optimism around children and young people today is because we have over 8,000 students that come through that centre, through their schools, and it's not so much the number of 8,000, it's the number of that 8,000 that bring mum and dad back and brothers and sisters to learn. We have kids from year 1 and 2 right up to teenagers that are coming in, and these are non-Indigenous children who haven't had much to do with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, who are dragging mums and dads and families back in. And I say the optimism's there is because I get to see it and I feel it. And your generation's been so hard to deal with, and I can't wait until I don't have to deal with all of you. But dealing with this next generation of children that are coming through, and the, it's not so much about a lived experience for them. They're so proud of culture, and they've been afforded the opportunity that many of us weren't afforded. I wasn't afforded the opportunity of Aboriginal education in high school. We weren't allowed to talk about it in primary school, and now I see a change and a movement. It's that pride and that power that will actually see the next generation come through and do what we've been striving to do for many years. So that's my answer to your question, Jess. That'll cost you $25. So we started the day with the activity. We've got some of the circles there. What I might do is I might ask you just to, and if the people online can bear with me and hopefully share some of the all in, if you could just probably take your little circle and have a chat to somebody who you don't know and you've never met before in this room about what all in means to you. So I'll be watching. I know who's sitting next to each other, and if you're talking to somebody, we might just come back together. So we have lunch coming up. We do have lunch coming up at 12, so there will be an opportunity for you to continue the conversations. I might just, in the last couple of minutes, throw over to the room. If anybody's willing and able to share their responses, or I will start to point at you. Thank you.
Hey, Johnson. I work here at Checkup.
Nice to see you again.
So I think for me, coming from a community perspective, is the fact that a community conversation about all of this, more about how are we all in? such a reconciliation. If we're reconciled, so if we're reconciled, we weren't together as long as we begin. How will we reconcile anything? So what exactly is the black space in this book?
That's a big question. I'm not going to answer it today, but it is thought provoking, and you know, and I think I've had these conversations many a times with my nan, because my nan was born in a time of separation, and she often said to me around what does reconciliation mean for me when I was never together. But I think the shift in terms of the mindset and the ability to, I guess, leverage off the relationships for her, and I think she sort of, as she's gotten older and wiser, has you know, relied on the relationships and the impact for her children and her grandchildren in that space. But it is one of those things that for a lot of our elders, the word around reconciliation is, what do I have to reconcile for? So it's good point. Thank you, Jade. David.
We've got some online comments. Normally you shouldn't read comments because they're a bad place to go, but we've got some good comments here. Always looking for ways to go beyond words about inclusion and acknowledgement. That's from Pamela watching on YouTube. We've got a check-up comment from Kim. Being all in for me means keeping an open mind, showing respect and supporting First Nation voices. Small steps, but they all matter. Thank you. Is there any online comments? Any comments from the room?
Any other further comments? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Nikki. I'm the Australian First Nations League Stanmore Corporation, so a government-owned corporation. For me, it's actually brought up more questions in regards to, we are an energy provider. We provide the energy for the state, and I think we're in the process of doing our Innovate Wrap. Our Reflect Wrap was pretty dormant for a bit. And I think, what can we do as an organisation that can, the all in, also think about health, you know, because that's probably something that we haven't thought about. So for me, now that we're in the process of creating and developing our Innovate Wrap as a lead for it, I'm going to go, okay, what can we do now?
Yeah.
That, because it's all intertwined, right?
That's right.
We've got employment covered, we've got, you know, procurement covered, but we haven't kind of addressed health.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually given me more questions.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing, but now I need to go back now and kind of go, right, what does this mean for us? What can we do? Having a chat to this lovely young man here, or young, yeah, young, I'll say young.
He's going to walk out of here another foot taller. I saw the shoulders go back then.
You know, and I think it was, we've been having a chat, and I think it's for us to look at partnerships. You know, like, yes, we're not in the health industry, but what can we do to create those linkages?
Yeah.
So I think now it's just opened up a bit of a chasm.
Yeah.
Need to look at some of those things and write it down and see what we can do, because I think it's so valuable, right? Because if you don't address all of them almost in parallel, something falls down.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like the scales. So. All right, thank you. Anybody from over this side of the room honing in?
We talked a little bit because we are in health, and specifically the health workforce, and how through reconciliation we can provide, if you're in a mainstream organisation and not a community controlled one, how do you attract and provide a safe, you know, culturally competent sort of place to work, and also understanding that you're working alongside and in partnership with community controlled organisations, and you know, what's your role as an ally in recruit? That workforce is key to improving, you know, your organisation, your services to the clients. So where's the balance there?
Yeah. And I think probably key to that is having conversation to the communities in which you serve and those who are operating in that landscape. So thank you. Nice to see you. Any other reflections from the group? All right, because I'm amazing at time and we've got 2 minutes left, I'll just give a plug out to Fig Jam & Co, who's a First Nations catering company who's provided our catering today. I'd like to thank everybody who spoke today, my panel member friends, and Helena for her keynote address. I think gave us all an opportunity to really reflect and go a bit deep. No chairs were thrown, no one was harmed in the process of making reconciliation happen. But I thank you all so much for speaking. Thank everybody for contributing and being part of that conversation with one another at the end. And thank you everybody online. Please join us for lunch. It's right on 12 o'clock. This event is closed. So thank you.